I've spent most of my life just focused on the road ahead. Not looking back.
The passing of Robert Redford on September 16th, 2025, at age 89 marks the end of an extraordinary chapter in American cinema. His death at his beloved Sundance estate in Utah was as quiet and dignified as the man himself, a fitting conclusion to a life that redefined what it meant to be both a movie star and an artist. Born Charles Robert Redford Jr. on August 18, 1936, in Santa Monica, California, his early life was far from the golden Hollywood narrative many would assume. His father, Charles Robert Redford Sr., worked as an accountant for Standard Oil, while his mother, Martha Hart Redford, was a homemaker. The family moved frequently during his childhood, eventually settling in Van Nuys. The young Redford was restless and rebellious. He struggled academically and found himself drawn to baseball and art rather than traditional studies. His teenage years were marked by minor run-ins with authority, nothing serious but enough to worry his parents. He was searching for something he couldn't quite name, a purpose that seemed to elude him in the suburban landscape of 1950s Los Angeles. After high school, Redford received a baseball scholarship to the University of Colorado at Boulder, but his demons followed him there. Heavy drinking became a problem, and he lost his scholarship after his sophomore year. The shame of that failure would stay with him for decades, a reminder of how quickly promise can turn to disappointment. Rather than return home in defeat, Redford made a decision that would change everything. He traveled to Europe, spending time in Paris and Italy, painting and sketching. This period of exile and self-discovery was crucial to his development as both an artist and a person. He learned to see the world through different eyes, to appreciate beauty and complexity in ways that would later inform his work as an actor and director. When Redford returned to the United States in the late 1950s, he was a different person. He enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, and while he initially struggled with the craft of acting, something clicked. His natural charisma and those striking blue eyes made him stand out, though not always in ways he appreciated. Early in his career, casting directors often dismissed him as too pretty for serious roles. This superficial judgment frustrated him deeply and would become a recurring theme throughout his career. The constant need to prove that there was substance beneath the surface. His breakthrough came on Broadway with Barefoot in the Park in 1963, opposite Elizabeth Ashley. The Neil Simon comedy was a massive hit, running for over 1,500 performances. Critics finally began to see past his looks to recognize his genuine talent for comedy and drama. The success led to the film adaptation in 1967, this time co-starring with Jane Fonda, and suddenly Hollywood took notice. But it was his next film that would make him a legend. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969, paired him with Paul Newman in what would become one of cinema's most beloved partnerships. As the Sundance Kid, Redford embodied a new kind of American anti-hero, charming, vulnerable, and ultimately doomed. The film was both a commercial and critical success, but more importantly, it established Redford as a major star with the ability to carry a film. The 1970s belonged to Robert Redford. He and Newman reunited for The Sting, 1973, another massive hit that showcased Redford's gift for light comedy and his natural screen chemistry with Newman. But Redford was already pushing beyond mere stardom, seeking roles that challenged both himself and audiences. The Way We Were, 1973, with Barbra Streisand showed his romantic leading man capabilities, while The Great Gatsby, 1974, attempted to capture F. Scott Fitzgerald's American Dream on screen. Though the latter film was criticized, Redford's portrayal of Jay Gatsby was haunting and complex, suggesting depths that the script perhaps didn't fully explore. It was All the President's Men, 1976, that truly demonstrated Redford's evolution as both an actor and a cultural force. Playing Washington Post reporter Bob Woodward, Redford helped bring the Watergate scandal to the screen with a precision and urgency that felt almost documentary-like. The film wasn't just entertainment, it was a statement about the power of journalism and the importance of holding power accountable. Redford didn't just star in the film, he was instrumental in getting it made, purchasing the rights to the Woodward and Bernstein book and shepherding the project through development. This hands-on approach would become typical of his later career, as he increasingly sought control over the stories he wanted to tell. By the late 1970s, Redford was looking for new challenges. He had conquered acting, but directing called to him. His debut behind the camera came with Ordinary People, 1980, a devastating family drama about grief, guilt, and the breakdown of communication. The film was deeply personal for Redford, who had experienced his own family tragedies. His first son, Scott Anthony Redford, had died of sudden infant death syndrome in 1959, just 2.5 months old. The loss devastated Redford and his first wife, Lola Van Wagenen, whom he had married in 1958. Later, his son Jamie Redford, would struggle with serious health issues throughout his life, including multiple liver transplants, before dying of cancer in 2020. Ordinary People won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Director for Redford. The victory was both a professional triumph and a personal validation, proof that he was more than just a pretty face, more than just a movie star. He had something meaningful to say about the human condition. He would go on to direct several more films, including The Milagro Beanfield War, 1988, A River Runs Through It, 1992, and Quiz Show, 1994. Each demonstrated his eye for character and his ability to find the universal in the specific. His directing style was understated but powerful, focusing on performance and emotional truth rather than flashy technique. Perhaps Redford's most lasting contribution to cinema came not through his acting or directing, but through his creation of the Sundance Institute in 1981. What began as a small workshop for independent filmmakers in the mountains of Utah has grown into the most important platform for independent cinema in the world. Sundance was born from Redford's frustration with Hollywood's increasing focus on blockbusters and sequels. He saw talented filmmakers struggling to get their stories told, and he wanted to create a space where artistic vision could flourish without commercial pressure. The annual Sundance Film Festival became the launching pad for countless careers and movements in cinema. Directors like Quentin Tarantino, Steven Soderbergh, Kevin Smith, and Paul Thomas Anderson all found early support at Sundance. The festival helped legitimize independent cinema and showed that there was an audience for challenging, personal filmmaking. Without Sundance, the film landscape would be vastly different and much poorer. Redford's commitment to Sundance was total. He invested his own money, time, and reputation into making it work. Even as he continued acting and directing, Sundance remained his passion project, his way of giving back to the art form that had given him so much. Away from the cameras, Redford was equally passionate about environmental causes. His love of the American West, evident in films like Jeremiah Johnson, 1972, and The Horse Whisperer, 1998, translated into real-world activism. He fought against offshore drilling, supported renewable energy, and was an early voice warning about climate change. His environmental work wasn't just celebrity activism, it was deeply informed and committed. He served on the board of the Natural Resources Defense Council and used his platform to raise awareness about environmental issues decades before they became mainstream concerns. His Sundance resort in Utah was developed with environmental sustainability in mind, serving as a model for responsible development. As Redford aged, he became more selective about his roles, choosing projects that interested him rather than chasing box office success. Films like The Natural, 1984, Out of Africa, 1985, and Indecent Proposal, 1993, showed different facets of his talent, while All Is Lost, 2013, was a tour de force performance that reminded audiences of his range and commitment. His personal life was marked by both joy and tragedy. His first marriage to Lola Van Wagenen ended in 1985 after 27 years, though they remained on good terms. They had 4 children together, Scott, who died in infancy, Shauna, David James, and Amy. In 2009, at age 72, he married German artist Sibylle Sagers, finding a new chapter of happiness in his later years. The death of his son Jamie in 2020 was another devastating blow, but Redford faced it with the same quiet dignity he had shown throughout his life. Those who knew him said he never fully recovered from losing a child, but he continued working and supporting the causes he believed in. Redford's last major film role was in The Old Man and the Gun, 2018, a fitting swan song that seemed to acknowledge both his legend and his mortality. Playing an aging bank robber who can't give up the life he loves, Redford brought warmth, humor, and poignancy to what many assumed would be his farewell performance. Even as his health declined in recent years, Redford remained connected to Sundance and environmental causes. He continued to make occasional public appearances, always maintaining the understated elegance that had defined his public persona for decades. Robert Redford's death closes a chapter not just in Hollywood history, but in American cultural history. He was part of the generation that transformed cinema in the 1970s, bringing new levels of realism and complexity to American films. But his influence extended far beyond his own performances. Through Sundance, he democratized filmmaking and gave voice to stories that might never have been heard. Through his environmental activism, he helped raise awareness about issues that are now central to global discourse. Through his directing, he proved that movie stars could be serious artists with something meaningful to say. His films will endure: Butch Cassidy, The Sting, All the President's Men, Ordinary People. But perhaps more importantly, his influence on the film industry will continue through every independent filmmaker who gets their start at Sundance, every environmental documentary that raises awareness, every actor who refuses to be typecast. Robert Redford was never comfortable with being called a legend, but that's exactly what he was. He showed that it was possible to be both a movie star and an artist, both successful and principled, both famous and authentic. In an industry often criticized for its superficiality, he stood for depth, integrity, and the belief that cinema could be both entertaining and important. The boy from Van Nuys who lost his way in college became one of the most influential figures in American culture. He proved that sometimes the most interesting stories are about redemption, about finding your purpose after losing your way, about using success to lift others up rather than just yourself. As the curtain falls on Robert Redford's remarkable life, his legacy shines brighter than any spotlight ever could. He reminded us that true stardom isn't about fame. It's about using your light to illuminate the path for others.